What? Now? Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2018 show. I'm your host, Don Kay. We are live from McGilvery Speedway, 30th and High School in the beautiful town of Speedway, Indiana. Tonight's show is presented, as always, by Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Verizon IndyCar Series, and SVRA. A couple of things I want to make mention. After I get my sheet out here. The next event will be the Grand Prix of Portland. The practices and so forth will be streamed live at racecontrol.indycar.com, but the qualifying and the race will be televised live on NBC Sports Network. And I just saw something came out and said the race will be on at 2:30 on Sunday, so be sure and tune it in. They'll also be doing the qualifying, so you can find out how that is. I want to mention a get well to Janine Smith. She and everybody usually sits in that corner. She's been gone a couple weeks. 2 weeks ago today, she had a new knee put in, but she hopes to be here next week, so hopefully she'll be doing well, and we'd like to see her back. I want to make a comment briefly on the Derek Daly and Connor Daly thing, and that was a joke. Without question, and it's amazing. I put out on my Facebook page a couple of articles that I saw, and the people's response, majority of them said, as far as we're concerned, Channel 8 can pull the plug and go out of business. So, for anybody that watched the race, Connor did actually well. He qualified 14th. He got up to 9th, I think. Then he had a suspension problem and fell out of the race at 38 laps, if I'm not mistaken. Am I too loud? Am I too loud? I'm sorry if I'm too loud. Be quiet. I'll try and hold it down. But he did well, and I've known Derek for 30 years. I don't know that I've ever heard him swear that I'm aware of. I knew him when he first came here, and he was a foreigner. And his comment was quite simply, I'm the one that's going to be in the doghouse if I don't perform. So where this came from, and also the person who said that he interviewed him, Derek said he never interviewed me ever. So it was a mess. I hope that everything recovers, and I have a feeling that Derek won't be unemployed on television for very long. Quite sure he'll be back. Next week is, of course, the Tuesday before the dirt track opens on Wednesday and Thursday. We currently have scheduled to be here Justin Grant, who is a hot shoe at the time. He'll be here. And we're working with this young man to get a couple more to talk about what's going on and what's going to happen for the biggest midget race in history. And speaking of that, I have the young man. I got to mention something else. I don't know if any of you ever followed drag racing in the 60s. I did. And I didn't know him well, but I met a young man by the name of Doug Rose. He built a jet dragster in 1966. He crashed it, or it crashed, and he lost both of his legs from the knees down. So the rest of his life he had prosthetics. In 1968, he got 3,000 pounds of steel and a $400 jet engine out of a Navy fighter and built another car, and he ran it all these years. When jets went away, he still went, and the promoters would bring him in, and he made a living, comfortable living, he said, doing that. Well, unfortunately, he was up at a track in Norway Speedway in Michigan, and his jet went haywire, went and hit the guardrail, and it killed him. He was 80 years old, his wife was 47, and the thought was, that's not what killed him, although maybe it could have, I suppose. He told everybody and told his wife, if I go, I hope I go doing this, and he did. But I knew him many, many years ago. He was a really good guy. His first car was called the Green Monster. When the one crashed and he built a new one, he renamed it the Green Mamba, the Green Mamba. And that's the one he died. And they think he had a heart attack, so don't really know. I also want to mention, if you haven't done it yet, you need to get a ticket, go on a ride around the Kiss the Bricks tour with Bill Simpson. I guarantee you, when you get off the bus at the end, you'll say, holy Toledo, wow. You will enjoy it. It's on Thursday, this coming Thursday. They have two rides, I think at 11:30 and 1, if I'm not mistaken. Get your tickets. They're $30. Even if you've been on the tour before, go with Bill Simpson. Believe me, I've known the man for 25, 30 years. You never know what he's going to say. And some of the stuff he did, you'll be amazed. So call the office, reserve your seat. The number is 317-492-6784. A ride with Bill Simpson. I guarantee end of the money that's being bought the ticket, $10 of each ticket goes to his charity, the Southside Animal Shelter. So it's not going in his pocket. He hasn't got enough room for anything else. So anyway, and also want to mention before we get started, you haven't fallen asleep yet. That's good. Okay. Bill and Steph Throckmorton have a limo. If you want to take a tour of their shop, the Grant King shop, the museum, and several other shops, give them a call. Get it. You take 6 to 8 people. They'll pick you up wherever you meet. Take 6 to 8. I didn't say 68. I said 6 to 8. And one of the places you go to perhaps will be Duman's Turn 4 Restorations and see how they are building cars. And it's amazing the number of cars that are out being refurbished. But give them a call. Get yourself in a little group when you're coming in for the Brickyard or for the air race and you want to see some shops. Give them a call. Their office number is 317-3710. Oh, wait a minute. That's his number. 317-820-3959. And if you're lucky, Fluffy will answer the phone. But don't call too early. Whatever you do. About 2 o'clock would be good. She might be there by then. My first guest is a gentleman we have become very close friends. He got here about 15 minutes ago. If you follow USAC, which many people do, you've been reading everything he has. If you're not on the list, you just go to USAC Racing. You read his story. He's a heck of a rider. He's a native, born and raised in Indianapolis. He's been a nut for racing, like a lot of us, for many years, but he is a heck of a good rider. And I'm thrilled that he's here tonight because next week there's going to be some kind of race going on that he may have something to do with. I'm not sure. But please welcome the media guy for the United States Auto Club, Richie Murray.
Thank you.
Did you ever drive cars? I mean, other than the street car.
I think I drove a tractor once in a Kmart parking lot in a qualification run, and I ran over a couple cones, and I decided that was the end of my racing career when I was 10 years old. So other than that, it's just been putt-putt, go-karts, and
putt-putt? You know. Some of those go-karts are fast.
Yeah, we've had some incidents. We're not allowed to go to putt-putt anymore. We can't talk about it.
I see. Is there somebody sitting at this table that said, not anymore, sport? Stick to the keyboard.
Yeah.
How did you get interested in racing?
Well, I don't know a time when I wasn't going to races. So it may have been my first race before I was born. That may have been the truth. I think my mom was still going when
really?
She was pregnant with me. So probably the Hoosier 100 right before I was born, or the year before. But other than that, I just been going to races, and I was one of those kids in the parking lot. We used to go to Putnamville just about every week, and I remember the trailers rolling in. Back when all the trailers had, they're all painted up and not plain white. And I was the kid that everybody would say, "Who's that?" I could guess who it was, and everybody always graded me on that. Like, well, okay, I think he pays attention, so we need to take him to more races, and I just kept going.
Well, I don't want to tell you how old I am, but I will tell you when I first started going, there wasn't covered trailers. They were on an open and a drug with a station wagon or a pickup truck. And if you had a disagreement with the driver, you settled it out in the parking lot with 2x4s or tire irons. Then you go out and have a few beers. The next morning you borrow parts and pieces, put your car together, and go race again. Things have changed with the enclosed trailers and everything. What got you interested in writing about it?
Well, I always liked to write, and I was in my school newspaper. I was the sports editor, sports writer, and my first initial thing I wanted to do, major in out of high school, was journalism. That was what my main focus was, but things happened, and it didn't end up doing that. I ended up going to sport administration for a year when I got to Ball State, and then decided, I think I want to be a teacher now. And as you can see, I'm using my degree, my physical education degree, very well right now.
Well, I hear you run once in a while, so that's
counts. Yeah, I run with my clipboard through the pits, getting entry list information a lot, so it comes in handy a lot.
I am told by somebody who shall remain unnamed, but his initials are Dick Jordan, that you know history quite well, which when he talked to you, it impressed the heck out of him. That being said, who are some of the greatest drivers through USAC that in your career that you can think of that you think, wow, these guys are phenomenal?
I mean, from the earliest days,
Yeah.
It was Jack Hewitt. That was always my hero. That was a very popular choice, but I was when I was there for the Four Crown, 1998, when he
I
won all
didn't see
four.
you there, but I was there.
I sat right in front of the family, and
Oh,
over in turn one, I remember it was deafening, the roar when he, won, got the midget race, which the midget race is very underrated. I don't know how Jack Hewitt won that. He came from like 12th or 14th to win that. Like, I haven't seen him win a midget race in a while. That was pretty awesome. Well, so let's see what he can do in a sprint car. Won the sprint car race. Modified race, he's got it. He's on the pole. And then after that, it was like, well, he's on the pole for the Silver Crown race. It's over. And I was already a big fan, but that just cemented it for me. I had to have the posters, and I still have it somewhere. It's somewhere in the closet upstairs.
well, I was there and went up to the media thing they had on the second floor and talked to him about it, and he couldn't believe that he did it. He said, all four, good grief. I think, although Cody has beat him, but I think the competition level at both are, not that Cody's not a great driver. I think he could beat most anybody. It doesn't matter. But when Jack ran, there was 30, 40 cars, and, he had to battle his way, and obviously one of the very best ever, and a good guy. He really is a good guy once you get to know him, if you're careful.
Yeah, he reached that status where there's only a few drivers who can do it. They can say anything they want over the PA, disparaging or just funny or use cuss words or whatever, and no matter what they say, everybody laughs and thinks it's great. And Jack Hewitt's one of those guys. I always enjoyed that. It's like there's other people that can say whatever and say something about another driver and people start booing. Everybody was on the side of Jack Hewitt, it seemed like most times.
How do you think Cody rates against Jack? If the two of them race, how do you think, not today, but in Jack's prime and now Cody's in his prime, how do you think that'd work out?
I mean, those are tough questions, of course, but
Well, I just want to make it easy.
They have the same crew chief, so I don't know. The battle of Bob Hampshire, would they be teammates? They might be. They run first and second, I think, probably. Interchangeable in those cars, but yeah, of course, there's good drivers nowadays. You got the Chris Wyndhams and Kevin Thomas Jr. and all those guys who were battling it out at Springfield just a few weeks ago. And obviously back then you have Chuck Gurney and Johnny Parsons, George Snyder. Those guys got to Indy, and it's just unfortunate some of those guys can't get to Indy today in that same way. But it's just.
Well, we're going to have a conversation next week with a driver who is being worked on to get to the Indy Lights possibly next year, and Cody is one of them, but he won't be in town. Justin they're working on a program, so we'll find out about that. But it seems to me, I've been around a long time, and back in the 60s and 70s, USAC was God. They were absolutely. Then it's kind of tailed up, but it looks like it's building up again. The car counts are picking up. The Silver Crown for the dirt race in Springfield, they had 40-some cars came out of the closet somewhere, and they got the same thing coming up this weekend in DuQuoin. USAC, the midget car numbers obviously upcoming. They got 110, the last I heard, entered next Wednesday, but it looks like things are picking up a little bit. The car counts are picking up. And the stands are getting fuller because there's good action.
Yeah, it's just we have a group of great racers right now. For better or worse, whatever way you want to look at it, they've been able to stay in USAC for longer periods of time, and they've been able to build that fan following, and they've been able to, climb up the rankings. And you can see, like, Kevin Thomas Jr. has 22 career wins in sprint cars now, and those guys are established. They're around long enough to become stars, and you have that star power. Like Tyler Courtney, a few years ago, he was just a guy out there. Now he's a superstar, Chris Wyndham, and it's just an excellent group. And besides the drivers, you got to thank my crew. Be like a shill for in Victory Lane here, but just a lot of tireless work by everybody, starting with Levi Jones and Kirk Spridgen and all those guys, just that we go out on the road with, and a lot of hours, I can tell you that. And and it's just all a dedication to this sport to make it, because we all love USAC first and foremost, and that's what we want it to be, the biggest and best out there, and that's what we put a lot of our time into.
And it's picking up, but you got to look back when AJ and Gordy Johncock and Tom Sneva and Mario Andretti and those guys were coming up. They ended up at 16th and Georgetown. That doesn't happen too much anymore. I don't know if you were here when Brian Clausen made his debut, and he had a gathering in Noble, Tucky, downtown Nobleville. And when he came out to qualify, he got the biggest hand of anybody, which says to me, these guys should get more of a chance, but it's not happening as it should, although somebody is working on trying to help change that. But there's no reason these guys can't move up and get in. If they're driving open wheel cars anyway, why not drive an Indy car? The only difference is it's got more horsepower, it's faster.
Yeah.
And speed is speed.
Yeah, it's definitely not for a lack of talent. That's for sure.
So.
And obviously there's a lot of things to go to it. We all know what it takes to get to to a ride in the Indy 500. It takes a little bit of money and sponsorship, just a little bit, but and it's a tall task for a lot of these guys that race for a living, and they do as much as they can to go sponsor hunting, but some guys can go sponsor hunting for a whole year to get that. These guys just race for a living to put food on the table sometimes and just keep on moving down the road. And they're fine. They're fine. With all that said, they're fine with what they're doing. It's driving sprint cars for a living's not too bad. That's a pretty awesome deal.
They're doing fine, but I think that the ones that I've talked to, and I don't bring it up anymore, as I said, you got to first off, you got to have something. You got to brand yourself. So when they say the mayor of Hinchtown, I know who that is. You've got to brand yourself. The next thing is you got to have your resume. Oh, they don't need that. They know me. No, they don't. Not anymore. 30 years ago they did, but now they got so much to look at. I mean, you can hook up, get a ride in a limousine, and tour race shops. You got to compete against a lot to get in, and it's a shame. Although it's good that they can make a living driving sprint cars, and some guys do fairly well doing midgets. And of course, if they win out here, they'll do pretty well for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that'll do pretty well. $15,000 bucks.
$15,000 to win. How many cars, when you left the office, the last I heard was 109, I think, something like that.
109, and I just got a message, a couple minutes ago. Yeah, we got 2 more cars. There's
really?
Another one. Yep, I think we're up to 112. We're up to 112 now. So, yeah, there's a cutoff at noon tomorrow, so I know there won't be any more after that. But we might get 10 more by tomorrow, I'm guessing. You never know.
I have to think with that number of cars, can Kevin Miller get up at 6:30 so they can get the program going? Wednesday is going to be very busy with that number of cars. They're going to run heat races until the cows come out and go out in the pasture and start grazing. Good grief. Has that all been laid out? How many heats and all that stuff to make your way around?
Yeah, I think there's the 12 heat races on Wednesday night, which starts at 5:30 p.m. Remember that? And then there's 12 heat races, and there's pursuit races. A pursuit race is kind of interesting deal, Australian pursuit type thing, where not to go into too much detail, but basically if you get past, you're out, and it's 20 lap race, and there's 5 4-lap segments. So like if you get past, and then the last place car, they're knocked out. So that'll be an interesting way. I've never really seen that in a midget race, so. That'll be an interesting aspect. And then Thursday, it starts at 5 o'clock, and you have they add up all the points from the night before and line up the qualifying races that way, and then combine the heat race points with the qualifying race points, and then, line up and go through the alphabet soup there. D main, C main, B main. Should I write this down? Do I need a T-square and all that stuff I don't know.
You need a recorder. Even Dr. Lewis said, "What did he just say?"
I'm not even sure sometimes.
And on Wednesday, you're only going to have 12 heat races. What is that, 35 cars in a heat?
34, I think.
34.
But, well, what's 12 times 11? 12, yeah, whatever. I got a C in math back then, so whatever.
It'll be 10 or 11 in a heat,
Yeah.
something like that, times 12. And I think if you make the feature, you get 1,000 to start. Did I read that?
Yeah,
I believe that's right.
Mhm.
Now, with all those cars, all those events, I think I'm going to leave my computer off for a couple of days because your stuff is going to be flying out the door.
Yeah, I'll be like, I need a guitar, one of those guitar string, or whatever you call them, the strap, just have my laptop connected to it, and I just hold it, I can just type it out.
That's a good idea. They have something like that. I've seen it.
They need to. Best Buy didn't have one, so I might need to order it online.
Whose idea was this? Do you know? Whose idea was it? Let's build a track in the Speedway.
Well, I know it kind of, the seed was, in the ground a couple of years ago when they just built that dirt track for Tony to play around on, and a few other guys, and I don't know, it kind of started from there. I'm not sure where that came from, where that idea, maybe Doug Bowles, but it kind of started there. Then after that, it was like, you know what if, and they try, I know information here, they tried last year. It was on the schedule briefly in the offices, but it was taken off, and that never came together. But the next year, this year, it started around January, and at one point it's like, it's going to happen, then maybe not, maybe it won't be done in time, but then, when was it? June, pulled the trigger and said it's happening, and all the approval got met from IMS, and there was about 50 days to build it, and if you build it, they will come, and they have come. 112 of them apparently.
Jeez. I know when Kevin was here, he said that USAC was heavily involved in organizing and get stuff. I know Mike Harding said, by the way, I have a big pile of clay, just what you need, and I got to get rid of it. I'll haul it for you for nothing. And then Kevin, when he was here, he said, we got to put poles in the ground. He said, I never realized how much a pole at a racetrack costs. I said, how much it is? $1,000. How many have you got? 53. Oh, well, you know where 53,000 went. Then they built the wall and they got the grandstands going. But strange thing is, after the race, they're going to level everything and seed it. I said, how do you rebuild it? We take it from the sky. We will build it exactly as it is today. We'll redo it. We're going to get it off a satellite, and they've shot it all and all that stuff. Again, I have trouble turning a computer on, so I don't understand all that. But they said, you won't know the difference. How much input did you have as far as teams and getting information, and so that when you send something out, you can say something about some of these drivers? Now, 112 of them, you better start writing now. But are you involved in the pre-national or Midwest America publicity, or through the Brickyard people that are coming?
Yeah, it's kind of, we're tag teaming it because it's to keep up with all that on a daily basis, plus all the other USAC races. It's about it's a tall task, I'll tell you, to keep up on that, and just updating the entry list every day. I just got an update. Oh, look at my phone. There they are. There's a couple more. Keep updating. So it's a nonstop process, and it's been that way since the announcement. Just trying to keep pumping out any little thing you can, any piece of information, and keep building this thing up, and hopefully get a lot of butts in the seats. And we've got a lot of cars out there, and hope to see a lot of you butts.
Just if they sell to their crew in the race, or go sit in the grandstands, that'll fill it.
Yeah.
I was told today that in the next 3 or 4 weeks, you got 33 races. USAC does.
Oh, I lost count after. My eyes glaze over when I look at the schedule. I don't look more than 2 weeks out, because we have, we have 3 races this weekend and 5 next weekend. So 8 in about a span of 10 days, I think. 8 and 10 days.
Yeah, and you got more coming.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was told there's 33 in the next 4 weeks or something like that. I said, geez Louise, are you going to stay home? No, we'll live out of a paper sack. Is this job what you thought it would be when you interviewed, and Dick said he's the man? is this what you anticipated, or is there more to it than you thought?
In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes in. The main thing I thought was a lot of what you thought you knew about what goes on. So when you're on the inside and why things happen, like it's like light bulb moment. I have one of those every day and still get them. So, and there's lots of those early on, like just. And it was trying to. Well, when I first got in there, I didn't have a resume or any job description. It's like, well, just go do what you do, and like, okay, well, I'll just figure out what I want to do, and I just kind of looked at everything, and okay, here's what I'd like to do, and are we doing it, and this is how it should be done. And I kind of formed a plan and kind of just attacked it that way.
And Kevin said, "Huh? Okay,
Sure,
yeah,
that works. Okay, looking good. Keep going."
Have you gotten to know most all of the competitors in USAC by now, so that you know who they are and know about their history? So you don't stand like guys that you did what? You won where?
Yeah, I pretty much talked to everybody at some point or another. Some more than others. I read the post-race interview, the post-race recap, so I get to talk to the winners. So a lot more, obviously, but yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you get to know everybody, and definitely through getting the entry info and all that stuff, you get to meet everybody. And sometimes the conversations are pretty brief, and sometimes you're there for 25 minutes and want to keep it going. Sometimes you're like, well, we got to see a couple more trailers rolling in. I think I'm gonna head out.
Well,
I enjoy them all.
Strange thing is, if you read Autosport or got my email, I had his bio on it. I didn't have a clue. I took a guess. I sent him an email last night and said I could use, or yesterday afternoon or sometime. I said, can you send me a bio? I didn't get an answer. 11 o'clock, I said, well, I guess he's not going to answer me. So this morning I went through it, and here's a reply. Sorry, I didn't see this. When I left the office, I turned my computer off. I didn't know USAC shut their doors down at 5 o'clock. I thought they were still functioning.
It was trivia night. I had to go.
Oh,
my girlfriend Caitlin out there. We did trivia night and finished third. So we got the podium. So it was. I can have one night off every now and then.
Why?
I didn't bring my laptop, despite what some people might think. I didn't bring my laptop to the restaurant. I do that.
Where were you playing this trivia?
Oh, another restaurant.
Obviously.
I'm not allowed to name that restaurant here.
Well, obviously they won't get any people.
No.
They play it here on Thursdays.
Yeah.
Are you here on Thursdays?
Well, I should come, but Thursdays are kind of taken up next week. I don't know. Should I go? I should go here instead of the BC 39.
I don't know.
I should stop here.
No, you got to take care of BC 39.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting what's happened with that event, because when it was announced, people said, oh, you got to be kidding. They already built the track, and it wasn't all that great, so Tony could play games and his final appearance and all that kind of thing. But what they have done now and the response to it has been phenomenal. I mean, I don't know if they anticipated this number of cars. I know they knew they'd have a good count, but I don't think they expected in excess of 100. But maybe they did.
Yeah, I forget what I expected too. I think maybe like 70. 60 to 70 is kind of where we're ballparking it at. And I even remember somebody saying that there's only going to be 30, 40 cars at most there. They should have modifieds as a sport class there. And I remember reading that. It's like, I could see before the next update, it's like, well, I don't know about that idea, but we'll have plenty enough racing to finish. 2 days is enough probably for you can't do it in one day.
It's going to be crowded. I mean, for the events, they've got to go bing, 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 bing. And if somebody gets themselves in the fence and they got to fix it, boy, now you got a problem. So let's hope that doesn't happen. But
Keep it on all fours.
It's kind of interesting to read what you write, because I think you're an outstanding writer. I think what you write is very good. It's concise. It tells the story. and tells about who did what and so forth. And I think, in my opinion, how many people get the USAC emails besides me? Well, obviously these folks do. If you don't get it, you need to go to usacracing.com because it's there, isn't it? All your stuff is there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it'll be there.
And you write for National Speed Sport News.
Well, kind of. I email my stories and they use them.
Well,
I guess I don't get paid by them, but I guess
You
I
don't?
work for them.
I'd say my computer broke. I know that was the only place I found your picture was on their website. And there was nothing else about you. You're a secret.
My Olin Mills photo.
I don't know where it was. I thought it was. I thought it was
shot.
probably from as a sophomore, junior
Yeah.
high school, but I didn't.
My
know.
8th grade photo.
And they listed all these articles by you, and that's all it had. And I'd already seen them, so I didn't read them. I thought, well, okay. So I made up a bio on you. I was close. You were born and raised here. That was true. You're a race nut. That's true. And you write for USAC. So I'm good 3 for 3.
Covers it all.
Yeah. Do you think that that guys like Foyt and Andretti can be beaten, that they can get more wins than those guys had over the years? Now, when Cody was here a couple weeks ago, I thought he was 24, 25. He's 30.
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap, he doesn't look any more 30 than I do, but in opposite directions. I look older than 30, and he looks a whole lot younger.
Yeah.
Do you think there's talent that equals a Foyt or an Andretti in short tracks?
I don't know about that. There's some guys obviously really, really good. Some of the best drivers in Sprint Car and Silver Crown of their generation, but always growing up hearing those names as the top two, I don't know how you can beat those two guys. That's kind of hard for me to tell. I didn't get to see those guys in their prime, but
Go to YouTube.
yeah, of course. But yeah, I don't know if that would be even blasphemous to suggest that anybody's better, but there's so much talent out there, and like you said, to get those win records, like Cody, he's good enough to be obviously he could be a NASCAR star. He could be.
Whoa. Open wheel. Don't stop.
Yeah.
They're going to start throwing stuff at you. You start saying that.
I'm finishing my sentence. We're an Indy 500 star. Yeah, those guys, but the way it is now, those guys aren't getting the call as much as they used to, so they can stay around, and like I said, they've established themselves as stars of USAC, but they haven't left, and that's benefited us greatly as they've moved up the charts, because you would think the win list, because Cody Swanson probably 10, 15 years ago, or time before that, 60s, 70s, any time before that, probably would have stopped at about 8 wins and been done with Silver Crown and racing Indy cars and stuff. And a lot of those guys are like that. The talent is obviously there, but it's just the opportunities to move up aren't as plentiful as they used to be.
Have you ever interviewed AJ and talked to him about his days in USAC?
I have not. I could never. I tried to get his autograph all the time, and he always turned me down. So I need to get that autograph.
Geez, I've done interviews with him and got his autograph as well. Something. I would think he would be more than happy, particularly in May now, since he's not going to any more races this year.
I always ask for him in the middle of the Indy 500, and he always says no. I don't know why.
Well,
I come up to his pit box.
He's got no sense.
I didn't have a Sharpie. That was my problem.
Well, I think you're going to be busy. I have a feeling. I could be wrong in this, but I think trivia might be out for a week or two. Just a guess.
My brain might be fried. I might not even be able to do 2 + 2 by the end of the week. So.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come here, and I look forward to reading. After going out and watching the dirt track, I'm interested to read and see if I saw the same thing you did. And I think you're doing a fine job. If you haven't read his stuff, I'm telling you, you got to go to usacracing.com. The stories that they email out are there. It's a very interesting read if you want to keep up with what's going on. And of course, as I was told today, there's 30-some races in 4 or 5 weeks, so he'll be rat-a-tatting away forever. So keep up the good work. Thanks for being here, and if your luck doesn't hold, I'll call you again.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I'll be back.
Richie Murray, the media director for the United States Auto Club. I have three gentlemen coming up now, but until they get here, I will be reading that Sam Pierce Chevrolet in Daleville, Indiana is where you have to go to find the best prices in the country, and Daleville is in the country. So you got to go see Sam Pierce, because you will find why he is always rated at the top of customer satisfaction. Just take I-69 north to exit 234, exit east 1 mile, and you will see him. You want to know what drivers like, male and female, like about, there's two more chairs there.
No, there's not.
Oh, I forgot to bring them. DB, can you get me two more chairs? Oh, okay. If you want to find out what IndyCar is like, you might want to contact the IndyRacingExperience.com and look at a date that works for you. Take a ride, and in the promo box put SJ1, and you will find that you get a 50% discount. The phone number you can call if you don't want to go online to look at it is call 317-243-7171. Talk to Shonda and tell her SJ1, and you can get yourself a ride at 50% off, and I guarantee it, you will love it. Is it time for insurance on your car, your home, or commercial building? Do what a lot of us have done. We call Mike Pardee at VP Insurance. He's located at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. Give him a call. Let him give you a quote. You'll find you probably get better coverage for less money. That's VP Insurance in Speedway at 5004 West 16th Street. His number is 317-248-0070. Mike Pardee, VP, call him. And if you haven't joined the IndyCar Nation, you're making a mistake, because there's all kinds of goodies you can get at every racetrack. You get to wave a flag for the start of a race. You get two-seater rides. You get all kinds of goodies. So go to IndyCarNation.com, and in the promo box put Don K, that's DONKAY 15, and you get a 15% discount off a Champion and Legend membership. And if you're a vintage car fan, and by the way, the show that went on at Gateway, the Vintage Indy Registry, was a phenomenal success. Great number of cars, great number of people. In addition to the lowly ones that were there, Bill and Stephanie were there with their what do you have, 2, 3, 4 cars? 2 cars? 2 cars. And it was a great success, so if you missed it, next time they have one, you got to check it out. Anyway, if you like vintage cars, you got to get the Vintage Racing Quarterly. Go to svra.com and subscribe. It's a great magazine, great stories, fabulous pictures. You will love it. I subscribe to it. I can't wait to get my copy. It's a good, well-written magazine. And their next event for the SVRA is the 2018 U.S. Vintage Grand Prix, September 6th to the 9th, out at Watkins Glen, New York. So if you're anywhere in that area, don't miss it. Go see it. My next guests are gentlemen, all three of whom collaborated on the newest book from Dave Argabright. There we go. It is called Modern Thunder. It's a story about sprint cars, sprint car racing. Now, most of you know that Dave has written some phenomenal books on racing. In fact, he started started writing a story in Sprint Car Magazine as just, well, let's see what happens. And he's now written 150. I just read the last one. It's a really interesting story. The man is a good writer, no question about it. Joining him on this one is a member of the Knoxville Motorsports Sprint Car Hall of Fame. He's been an announcer and a historian. He works at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in May in the media center interviewing drivers. He's been around the sport forever. This past weekend at Gateway, I was listening online to the Mazda Road to Indy program, and lo and behold, here's his voice. I thought, wow, he's moved up in society. You hear him everywhere. He's one of the best. Please welcome a Hall of Famer, Mr. Pat Sullivan. I should clarify that, Dr. Pat Sullivan. And sitting in the middle is a guy who has spent many, many years going like this. He's taken more pictures than probably anybody in existence on motorsports. And this book is 358 pages, I believe, and there's 1,300 pictures. I think it took him, I heard, about 5 days to come up with that number of pictures. It's a phenomenal book. If you haven't got one, they have some here. talk to Dave and get it. But please welcome Mr. John Mahoney.
Also a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, also, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, also a Hall of Famer. And Dave is too. Jeez, how did I get up here? I better shut up, I'll get thrown out. Dave, let's start with you. When did you come up with the idea, let's write a book about sprint cars?
You know, I don't think it was my idea. I think more Patrick kind of kept bringing it up, and you know, we just had always thought about collaborating. It'd be kind of fun to do something together. We've been friends for a really long time, and for me, you know, I looked at the original USAC book that was 1956 to 80, and then, you know, John's sprint car pictorials. For me personally, those were my introduction to USAC history. I mean, I really learned a ton of the sport from those publications, and I started to form up the idea that it had been a long time since anybody's documented the history of USAC sprint cars, and you know, the idea was that book is going to be around a really long time, and I hope that we could reach maybe people that are not familiar, maybe even younger people, to introduce them to the history and kind of make them more of a sprint car fan, just like it worked with the three of us up here.
You know, it's interesting. I've followed sprint cars for a long time, not in '54. I was still trying to get educated at that time. But sprint car racing has always been spectacular, and most drivers you talk to that were in the open wheel and moved up to IndyCar, sprint, and even today, sprint cars are their favorite car to drive. Pat, what got you interested into it? I mean, you're highly educated down at IUPUI. You spend some time now and then. Now you travel all over the place. But what got you interested in racing and in sprint cars in particular?
Well, I like sports, and that's really the bottom line.
I know that.
I like all sports, and so by extension, I liked racing in part because at least one of the family traditions was listening to the Indianapolis 500 on the radio on Memorial Day. But as I've said many times, I saw an event that, for some reason, was the event that turned the light bulb on for me, and it was a battle between Emmett Hahn, the current promoter of the Chili Bowl, and Ray Crawford, who drove for a guy named Harold Hillenberg out of Oklahoma City as the Tulsa Fairgrounds, half-mile track, packed house. It was a stunning event, super modified event, and I was captivated by it. I just thought it was stellar. And I remember I bought a Speed Sport and I bought a Hawkeye Racing News the same night, and I pored over it, and I made a more conscious attempt then to go to short track races. I'd been before, and it just sort of took from there. And I like all forms of racing. To me, there's still nothing quite like a sprint car sideways throwing clay side by side with other guys. I think it's the most, it's a most radical form of racing there is. I just love it.
Well, the guy sitting on the end, if you watch up here, all they're doing road racing now, but it's MAV TV, you'll see him on there all the time. He's on MAV TV, so you want to see what Dave does with his time, there's part of it. He doesn't write all the time. John, what got you interested in taking pictures? I mean, other than the fact that maybe like me, I didn't want to drive. I thought, man, you can get hurt doing that. How did you get into photography?
Well, I was a fan of IndyCar racing, since I was, 10 years old, and
that wasn't that long ago, was it?
yeah, right. And then I started going to the races with my next door neighbor back in, when I was 14, 15, something like that. But a huge IndyCar fan, and then I'd bring the old family box camera to the races too, and then go down to the pits after the races and take pictures. And but I'll never forget the day in 1959 at Terre Haute when I saw my first USAC sprint car race, and that's when I knew, oh brother, this is something I really want to be involved in. And so I guess it was kind of an angle, like, okay, I don't want to drive these things, but if I can take photos of them, maybe I can, finagle a pit pass, and be closer to these guys. And that's really where the twig was bent back in '59 when I went to Terre Haute.
Do you have a regular job, or is this what you've done for many years?
I had a regular job on and off. My sweet wife Martha helped support me when I decided I'm going to go to do photography full-time. But I had a job with the state a couple of different times. And, I loved my job with the state, but it was basically to pay rent, so I could do this full time. And then I did it full time for several years, from '78 until about '85. So I just absolutely wanted to stay as close to the sport as I possibly could.
There's two kind of jobs: a racing job and a paying job.
Exactly.
And Dave told me there's 1,300 of your pictures in this book. How many photos have you got stashed around your residence?
I'm sure there's millions. I couldn't even attempt to count them. I've been shooting, professionally since about 1965. But I'll never forget Dave and Pat and I have been talking about doing this book for years, 4 or 5 years. We got to continue this book. And I was involved with the original book from 56 to 80 with Carl Hungness when I worked with him. But we met at Dave's place and we're starting to lay things out and say, here's what we want it to look like. And says, John, we're probably going to maybe do 30 photos for each season. And I started to do some math in my head, and all of a sudden it's over 1,000 photos. And I really didn't hesitate, though. I thought, this is something I really want to be involved in, and I'm absolutely proud of the finished product and that I could contribute to it.
Let me jump in on that. First of all, that was one of the hardest things. I mean, John sent us a CD every year, and then we would try to go through the CD and select the image. And I mean, you've got a couple of masters to deal with there. One is you want dramatic shots, you want historically significant shots, you want wide coverage. I mean, it was really important for us. You could do a book of all the stars, but everybody who suits up is a star in my mind. And we wanted to get as many individuals as we can. But just a little bit about John's work. The Hungness book, I have memories or images of pictures from that book that are burned in my consciousness that spoke to me about events that I didn't see just by the quality of the photograph. And by the way, I'm going to say this too. I'm really proud of this effort. I reread the thing after it was all done, and I was really happy with it. But just today, I just picked the book up and I flipped it. And John has an image. It's a simple image of the great Glenn Nibel in a conversation with Jim Keeker, who was a great racer. And Glenn has his neck and his face stuck out and bowed over, looking at Keeker, who's a great racer. And having been around the great Glenn Nibel, I saw that pose so many times because he was an imposing man. When he particularly had the cowboy hat on, he folded his arms that looked like they were something that a blacksmith would have. And he looked at you with those piercing eyes. It stopped you dead in your tracks. And I looked at that one image and said, that image captures Glenn Nibel. There's no words that I or Dave could have written that have done that quite like John's work. And so throughout that book, there were so many of those things where you go, that captures the moment. And that's the beauty of John. That's why John's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that I would second that. You know, when we did the process, Pat wrote the annual summaries of each season. I wrote the personality profiles and all the photo captions, and then did, some of the layout, things like that. And as you said, Pat, I would be working through pages and I would stop because there were certain photos, and I've seen them before, but you look at an image that, that John has from whatever years ago, and it just it transports you back to that moment. You really felt like you were standing there talking to that guy, and that's just the power of good images. And before we go any further, I do want to give a shout out. Richie Murray, who was up here a minute ago, was truly indispensable in this project. And I mean that sincerely. We couldn't have done this without him. He dug deep into the USAC archives, and all of those statistics there, a lot of that stuff had not even been organized. It's never been published.
Or was correct.
Correct. And Richie and Dick Jordan, ourselves, everybody, we just poured ourselves over this stuff over and over again to get spellings right, chase down hometowns, get corrections, and that element in addition to several other things, I'm really proud of this book because we're putting something out there that just did not exist, and it's an important chapter of racing history that I feel like is now going to be preserved.
I can say one more thing, too, working with these two guys. From the start, it was going to be the best we could possibly do, and originally the book was only going to cover seasons through 2016, but both Pat and Dave thought, okay, maybe we ought to add this. Maybe we ought to include a little bit of the history from 56 to 81. Let's do some profiles of the champions. And the more that I was involved with the book, I thought this is really going to be terrific. And I'll tell you what, there's one other thing that is an incredible addition to the book, and what Dave poured through for days was an index in the back. And if you're a driver that have run USAC from 81 to 2017, you want to know if your picture's in the book. And you go to the index, and there it is. And if your photo's not there, it's there with the stats. I mean, if you earned a point in USAC, you're there. You're there.
And I'll tell you how far you must have gone. Bill said he's in there twice.
Yes, he is. Absolutely. We tried to include as many drivers that participated during those years, and it's impossible to get everybody.
Fluffy,
But
did you drive a sprint car?
Who, me?
Well, yeah, you're the only Fluffy I know.
Not in the United States.
Okay,
In South Africa,
yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Sure, she had her specially built driver suit, and I went, woo. What's that?
You know,
well, you know what? She did it.
we touched on, we touched on 1,300 photos, and I think what's helped me in progressively as I've published and written more books is that you have to take this thing in stages. And when we started, you know, I can still think back to that time sitting at my kitchen table some years ago where we really said, okay, now we're ready. Let's get rolling. We didn't really say we're going to do almost 400 pages. We're going to do 13. What we said was, let's start with the first year. Let's just start with that first year and then we'll do the next year. And that kind of made it, you know, digestible. And, you know, this thing for me was a little bit like going car shopping. You have in your mind a budget on what it's going to take to produce this book. It's just like you go out looking at a car and you say, my car payment is going to be no more than $250. And after you look at all the options and all that, you roll out of there with a $400 payment, you know. And it was the same for this because we were originally kind of bare bones, and then we said, well, what if we added profiles of the champions, and what if we added a bevy of statistics at the back, and what if we added an index? And every time, you know, I would look at this commercially and say, oh, holy crap, you know, what have we got ourselves into, you know? But really, there's not one thing I second guess on this thing. I'm really, really proud, and I have to tell you, you know, you gauge, this is really, in the end, it's about the readers, period. Just like anything in media, it's about the consumers. And, you know, I walked into SmackDown the other night, and I didn't get 10 feet inside the gate, and a guy stopped me. I don't know the gentleman, but he stopped me and he said, hey, listen, that's the greatest book that's ever been written about sprint car racing. And you know, there's not a better thing we could hear than that.
And I think the thing, Don, that is important for me to say, and I think it's true for all of us, is that making money was never the goal here. I mean,
Good thing.
didn't care. The idea was to preserve racing history. And, you know, what I really think about how lucky people are going to be in the future, because Richie's come on board, he's done these wonderful stories. So a historian goes back in the future and looks at Richie's stories, he's going to have a lot to work with. Whereas when we're going through the old newsletters, you know, it was much more sketchy. But the biggest issue was our admiration for people that put it on the line. It was really important for us to have officials in there, people that gave up a lot of their time to work for USAC for nothing. Yeah, it was really a labor of love.
John, I got to ask you, with all these 750 pictures you have, do you have them all categorized? So when they say, we need something from this track in 1977, you say, yeah, here's the file. You have them all so you can find them?
I'm really well organized.
His wife
and
piped up, yes.
What's that? when I was shooting negatives, which was a long time in my career,
Yes, it was.
I would make contact sheets, and I know there's photographers out here that know what contact sheets are, but they eliminate you having to go, oh no, not this one. Then you're looking through the light for this one. They're printed on a 8x10 photo, and then I have a key to where the negatives are. So I've been lucky that way. I can find negatives pretty doggone quick. Since I went digital in 2005, I'm not that well organized, but it's a lot easier to find things, and so I was lucky that way. So I can find things when I need to find them.
When he's at home and he's looking for a tool, can he find it that quick, or can he find a picture faster?
Well, only if I tell him where it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's why, though, that is why John is just really the go-to guy in our industry for racing photography. I mean, he really is, and obviously he's skilled and his images are awesome, but really the real key is if you're looking for something, it doesn't help you a bit if this guy has this fantastic, amazing, incredible photo if it's in a box under his bed. It does not help you in any publication at all. And a whole lot of photographers, that is exactly where all of their work is. It's in a box somewhere. This guy here, if I'm working on a magazine story
Same
or a
here.
book project, any editor in the world will tell you, you call John, because if you say, I want something from April of 1983, you got a better than good chance that he not only has it, he can get it. That's everything.
I really am wonderful, that's for sure.
Mr. Wonderful.
Pat, I've got to say, I get your Facebook stuff,
Yeah?
and I'm thinking, what the hell do you have a house for? You're never there. You're on the road to an event, baseball, football, basketball. It doesn't matter. You're there all the time, and right alongside you is your wife. Is she as crazy about sports as you are, all sports?
I wouldn't say she's as crazy, but she likes sports, and she's just a really good partner. She's just a wonderful wife, and we have a great relationship. And I don't know how many times we go around, but I can count on one, and I'm damn well going to get everything out of it. I'm not going to sit at home and watch TV. I'm going to do things, and I like lots of things besides racing, and I like doing things, and I will continue to do that.
Needless to say, you're a Jayhawk guy.
I am very proud of that, and I'm very proud to teach for Indiana University, so I'm a proud Hoosier too. I'm proud to live in Indiana now, which is a place that I chose to live. But to have this is, to me, I think about this all the time. That obviously I had read some of Dave's stuff. I've written now magazines for many years, but I was looking at Open Wheel magazine, and I saw this picture of Dick Gaines and Bob Kinzer at Bloomington Speedway. And I wrote a note to a guy on Oak Street in Greenwood, Indiana, and asked him if I could buy a copy of it. And it was John Mahoney. I still have that picture in my office that I purchased from John, and I think to myself, I bought that picture from John. I wouldn't have known him if I tripped over him. I consider him one of my best friends. I've worked a project with him, and I've announced at Bloomington Speedway for 25 years. Life is weird. And, to have gotten here and had the chance to work at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and to get the things that I've been able to do and be involved like I am, I mean, it's just luck. And you just pinch yourself and say, how did this really happen? But I'm as excited about it as I've ever been. I'm going to tell you right now, Richie Tamburano, these guys that are racing USAC now, they're so good. And they're so great guys, and I really like them. I enjoyed the IndyCar race this weekend. It was fun. The vintage cars were fantastic, and Mike asked me to be sure to be prepared for that, and I was. The great thing about racing, let me just say this, the great thing about racing that really makes it so incredibly different than other sports. I've been a Colts season ticket holder for 25 years. Have I gone and shook Peyton Manning's hand? No. I've been a Kansas City Royals baseball fan my whole life, the A's before that. Have I ever spent time with George Brett? No. But I've been side by side with A.J. Foyt. I've interviewed Emerson Fittipaldi. I interviewed one-on-one Michael Schumacher. I know Cody Swanson. I know Chris Wyndham. I know Justin Grant. I actually know their families and know something about them. You can't get that level of intimacy in another sport quite like you can auto racing. I remember one time Bob Kravitz was a little critical of something that happened in the press room because people seemed to be sort of invested in what was going on and it wasn't dispassionate. And I told Bob, I said, Bob, you don't understand this. People really do know this guy. And they really know his story and they're really pulling for him. There is not the degree of separation you find in other sports. Racing is unique in that regard. So, yes, I like other sports, but the opportunity to be on the inside and see how people tick and what makes them tick has made racing so incredibly unique.
And I think, to your point, back when I started following him in the 50s and 60s, you think you walk up to some of these guys and talk to them? No. They were, I don't know what they were into, and I don't want to know, but today, you want to talk to a Justin? You can. You want to talk to Cody Swanson? He was just here a couple of weeks ago. You can. They're very outgoing, very friendly, very easy to approach unless they're putting their helmet on to climb in a car. The attitude, they realize if they don't connect with the fans, there's be nobody in the stands.
Well, and the flip side, and I'm not going to mention names, but it's a driver who won the Indianapolis 500 twice and also raced in Formula One. I'll let you narrow it down. And he doesn't live in the United States. His most recent win was pretty recently, so you can probably get closer and closer. Ran NASCAR for a long time. I was sent out to get a quote from him on a Tuesday night at the Speedway by the Media Center. Okay, it's 5:45 on Tuesday at the Speedway, and there's not 100 people on the grounds. There's nobody there. And I said, can I get a quote from you for the News Bureau? And the driver looks at me and goes, I don't think so. And I said, you know what? I got news for you. You didn't win the Nobel Prize. You're not a surgeon. You're not a war hero. You're a race driver. That's all you are. Nothing more, nothing less. That's great. But that attitude, I'll see ya. I don't need your quote. I want the guy that has the time to spend with me. Don't tell Paul Kelly that. That might make him be fired.
I have to tell you, a friend of mine sent me, I think it was the last issue of Sprint Car Magazine. He wanted me to read something. I've forgotten what it was. But as I'm thumbing through it, here's a story about Pat, about you, about your history and so forth. And I thumbed through, and there's a story you wrote. And I said, well, geez, the guy's got the place covered. For where you come from, where you go, I don't know if you go daily to IUPUI, but what you do, and then you see what we in the racing world see, they don't connect. But you're a race fan, you're a sports fan. You have a son who is interested in either one of the things you're into, but he's out in Colorado living the life of Riley. It's interesting how all that happens. How do you get so diversified in what you do? But many people do it, and to me, you're the extreme, which is great.
Yeah, but it's still about people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, as John desired to be the very best photographer he could, as Dave desired to be the best broadcaster and writer that he could, I desired to be the best educator and the best writer and public address announcer that I can, and I'm drawn by people that are motivated to try. I say this to my students all the time. The easiest course in life is to be mediocre. Because when you're mediocre, you don't challenge or threaten anybody. You can run through the raindrops forever. But if you want to be great, you put yourself out there. That's why I said, when you strap into a race car, you're putting yourself out there and you're desiring to do great things. You may fail at that, but for the love of God, you gave it an effort. So whether it's a student who desires to be a great therapist, or a baseball player who wants to be great at their craft, or a painter, an artist, or a race driver, I'm captivated by the innate motivation to do great things. I mean, we all want to leave a footprint, no matter how faint it is, from the time that we are here. Perhaps that's hubris, perhaps that ego, maybe so. But I know one thing that I thought when I did this book, as I've been on John's butt and Dave's a little bit, but I do another one, say, John, we want to leave a footprint. We want to leave something that will be there when we're gone, rightly or wrongly. So, yeah, it seems diverse, but I think they're all hooked together.
in one way or another. Yeah, you're right. Also in that magazine was, I think, number 150 of your story, which you started writing about, was it Dave Wilson?
Jimmy Wilson.
Jimmy Wilson,
Yeah.
And what caught my attention is when the first Brickyard was here, we had a guy come up to help engineer the car. His name was Jimmy Wilson.
Yeah, I've seen the name a few times here and there,
Well, I
yeah.
started reading those stories, and I read the last one. I thought, to start off as, well, nobody will care, but I'll do one. 150 of them later, you're still doing them, and they're still really good stories.
Well, and I appreciate that. I mean, honestly, my life's just been a series of fortunate circumstances, and that was one of them. You know, we kind of stumbled into trying to do something different, and it's turned out to be one of the most fun things that I've ever done. And it's just fun. It's not real. It's not meant to be real. It's not brain surgery. It's just a fictional story about a racer, and people luckily have related to it, and it's still going on. I mean, I think I've done 162 chapters now, and getting ready to publish the 5th book in the series of it, and it's just been fun. You know, of all the things I do, I probably get more feedback on that series and that writing than anything else that I've ever done. So who would have guessed that? I wouldn't have.
Plus, when I contacted you when the book, you said the book is out, and I got a hold of you quick and said, can you 3 guys come and do the show? And you said, well, I'm booked for the next 3 or 4 weeks, but I'll contact you when I have something open. And you did. And if you don't have MAV TV, you got to get it. I come in here on a Tuesday, and there he is. I said, what the hell's he doing there? At a winged sprint car race or somewhere, whatever MAV TV goes to, you're there. They keep you pretty occupied, don't they?
It's been good, but it's been a good season because I've alternated a lot of weekends where I've had some weekends off, and that's great. You know, I still love what I do, but I'm like anybody that's done this. I'm pretty well had enough of airports and hotels, but I mean that's just part of the deal. That's what you have to do. And but this year's been good because the way the schedule fell, I've had some summer weekends at home, and my wife and I like to go to concerts and do different stuff, and so I like that. You know, I don't want to. I've gone past the stage of if they throw open the gates at a racetrack, I got to be there. I kind of used to do that. I don't have to do that anymore. I like to have some things outside of racing that I get involved with too.
Well, I've decided that I don't need to go to the racetrack every race either, and fortunately, as far as IndyCar is concerned, they stream it on the internet, so I put the rake down or shut off the lawnmower and go in and watch it, and when they're through, I'll go back out and rake leaves or some stupid thing. So I don't go to as many races as I used to, but this is a different world. There's an internet, there's streaming, you can see most everything. As I said, I was watching the Mazda Road to Indy program. I forget what series it was, but here's Pat. What the hell's he doing on this now? Well, I mean, I was great because I know you and I know what you know, and you certainly wouldn't have stepped into a booth in a series that you had no clue. So you knew what you were talking about. It was interesting to listen, and I enjoyed that. I thought that's great. How many classes are you involved? I don't know if you teach or I think you mentor those going for PhDs, if I remember right.
Yeah, I have a unique position. I'm the director of the Center for Social Health and Well-Being, which is a research center at the IU School of Social Work, and so that, and I have a project in Washington, D.C., so I only have to be in class like once a week. I teach a graduate class once a week, and then I do have a couple of doctoral students that I'm their chair, and it's a good deal.
In other words, it gives you time to travel to see other sporting events and concerts, I might add.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but you know, I have to write for academic publication. I've got 4 articles for academic publication out right now on a project that I've been working on with someone that deals with issues of moral injury and spirituality among Army veterans, and I've got an ongoing project with VA, and so I have to write academic stuff regularly. So, but I have inherent flexibility, which makes teaching a really good job. And I've got a new dean, but my old dean knew what I did and really certainly didn't mind. In any professional job, I mean, I think the reality is that if you're off here, then you better expect to work in the evening. It's that bottom line business, and at the end of the day, if you deliver, you deliver.
John, has there ever been a time you strapped your camera on, went to the track, and said, I really don't want to be here. I really don't.
I'll
other than if it
Ask
was
my
racing?
sweet wife, Martha. You know, I'm talking about in the last few years, I think, well, I'm going to slow down a little bit. And she says, yeah. But I'm absolutely the luckiest human being on the planet because I've been involved with sprint car racing and been lucky enough to be really involved with it for 50-some, 60 years. My sweet wife, Martha, supports me in every aspect of the sport. I'm slowing down a little bit, but I told her, I was just at the SmackDown for the 2 nights, and Kokomo is becoming quickly one of my favorite tracks of all time. I mean, I have nostalgia. I love Terre Haute, the half mile, but Kokomo provides some of the most incredible racing. And last year's SmackDown finale, 4 drivers going at it for the last 10 laps, side by side, 10 laps. And after it was over with, I just said, that's why I still hang around. I cannot give this up. And I'll never be one of those guys that say, oh, it was so much better in the 60s. No, it is incredibly good now. There's so many young talent, regardless of economics and, you know, who ride bys and who doesn't. When you're behind the wheel, you got to drive that race car. And there's young guys that are just driving the hell out of it. It's still an absolute wonderful sport.
How much do you think with the new ownership and having fixed up the track has improved the competition?
What was that again?
At Kokomo?
Yeah, Kokomo. When they fixed up the track, the new owners came and made a lot of dramatic changes. How did that affect the racing? Make it better?
It's affected it a lot. I love the old Kokomo. It was kind of dumpy and flat, and I don't think Bill Lipke did much on it except
It was
put
the most
water on it.
unique flat track, really, because it was so flat.
Yeah,
which is
But
interesting.
it had a ton of atmosphere and character.
Yes,
it
it
really
did.
And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that to be funny. It just was a special place.
Yes, yeah, but and then I didn't go there for a couple 3 years, and some of my photographer buddies say you got to get back to Kokomo. It's just incredible. It's incredible, and it is. It is.
Yeah, when the O'Connors came down and took it over, and I think they ran it as is that 1 or maybe 2 seasons, and then they kind of announced that we're going to reconfigure everything, and I immediately said, oh man, and kind of cringed because we've all known racetracks that just were never the same. But man, they hit a home run in every possible way. Aesthetically, the competition there, the new stands on the backstretch, it's just great. It's just, and we are so incredibly lucky that it's here and it's an hour away and it's going strong. I mean, people all over the country have lost their racetrack, you know, that racetrack that was near and dear, and, you know, we've got several just going strong here.
Everyone
We're
I grew
very
up on in
lucky.
Kansas City is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to think that before they came in and changed the track, that used to be Tony Elliott's payday. He just cleaned house pretty much.
Well, Tony Elliott, Kevin Thomas, and Dave Darland set the standard there.
And it was, you know, that's true. It's very different. I still relish those days when the cushion would get pushed out 3 inches from the fence, and a guy like Ricky Hood or something could just, you know, either with or without the wing, it didn't matter. He could put it right up on the fence and go 30 laps and never make a mistake. And those were great times. You know, a lot of great races up there in the old Kokomo.
Have you got another project? Have you got time to start another project after completing this?
You know,
Where are you going next?
Yeah,
I know
Pat-
Pat wants to do another one, and John
Pat,
wants
yeah,
to do
man, the ink wasn't even dry, and he was selling us on, all right, let's go, you know. But I'm kind of, you know, part of the challenge of this book was that I honestly, and I've told these guys this, I had a lot of angst through the period of time we were producing it because I was juggling so many different projects all the time in my television schedule. These guys are my friends first and foremost, and I felt like there were times that I was letting them down because I just couldn't devote my full energy to bringing this thing to a conclusion. And so, you know, that was hard, and I don't want to get into that situation again. But, you know, I'm trying to finish a book with Jimmy Sills, the sprint car racer. I've got the 5th Jimmy Wilson book that's going to go to the printer here in a week, and went down to see Steve Kinzer a few weeks ago, and I think we're ready. I think, you know, a Steve Kinzer book's in the offing, and so I've got a lot on my plate, and beyond that, we'll just see. Pat he's going to keep lobbying. I know
Yeah,
Pat.
John Mahoney and I will be doing a Silver Crown and a midget history book. He doesn't know it, but he is.
I'll buy the first one.
I swear. I mean,
Stop it,
and
Mark.
it's such a cliche, and this was a labor of love and all that sort of jazz, but I think I really dislocated a couple of discs in my neck working on the PC for a year and a half, downloading photos, and as soon as it was done, Pat says, "Okay, John, we need to do that Silver Crown book, don't we?" And I said, well, then how about the midget book? And I said, talk to somebody else. I am done with a project like this.
Winner. That's B feature material right there.
That's right.
No, and in fairness, I mean, it was a labor of love, but man, I'm telling you, that's my 14th book that I've done, and they take a lot out of you. I mean, they do. That's a fact, and it is not easy to do. And every time I finish one, I say, "That's it." Well, you can see how well that's worked, but it is hard. These things are hard. I say this total sincerity. There's a reason that there's a lot of writers and only a few authors. There's a reason for that.
Speaking of books, we have them here.
Yes.
We have them here,
Yes.
and I did a book a few years ago, Full Tilt, and it sold really fast. And unfortunately, we were going to reprint it, and publisher Ed Watson passed away. And so many people asked me, "Can I get a book?" It was gone. It was gone, and this thing is going to be gone. I'm warning you. So, if you got $50 with you, we'll deal with you.
John, I've got a suggestion with this neck nonsense. If she can't give you a massage, go see Dr. Rob Schroeder, the chiropractor. He'll have you doing the book in 2 weeks.
We'll do it.
Well, listen, I thank you guys for coming. I remember many nights at Bloomington watching and you in the booth announcing, and what's his name, Brad, old boy, was your
Brad?
compadre.
Brad and I will be together at DuQuoin, and I'll be at the BC 39 and Sonoma after that.
Are you
It's
on the
great.
PA for the BC 39?
I am.
Are you?
Yes.
Then I'll recognize the voice again.
Yeah, good.
And trust me when I tell you, when he talks about a race, he knows what in the hell he's talking about. He knows the competitors, he knows the cars. When John takes a picture, he makes sure I get out of the way so we get a good shot. And Dave is always everything. I mean, I'm telling you, when that new book comes out about Jimmy Wilson, I got to get a copy of that. That is funny. If you haven't read that, it's funny. It's really good. Very interesting. You read what he writes, and then he writes a story. Like, it's not the same guy. Yeah, it is. A lot of talent. Thanks, all three of you, for being here.
Thank you.
Don't forget the name of the book, in case you can't remember. Modern Thunder. What is $50?
$50.
This is top shelf book. Trust me when I say that. And it says right on there, Dave Argabright, John Mahoney, and Patrick Sullivan. Thank you both, all three of you, for being here.
Thank you,
Pat
guys.
Sullivan, John Mahoney, and Dave Argabright. Next week we will be here. Now, for those of you who I hope are online watching, I think there's a problem with the picture. The video will be up shortly. I don't know what happened. The audio was out, so I hope you stuck around and listened. If you didn't, you want to see what these guys look like, don't hesitate. But next week, my first guest, as I mentioned, is Justin will be here. Justin Grant will be here, and we're working on a couple more for the night before the BC 39. Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching, for being here. Until next week, Don Kay, and say good night. See you next week.